Hey everyone! Welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to talk about something super important in Spring Boot, getting your data. If you're dealing with databases like MySQL, PostgreSQL, or any other, how you connect to them can really make a big difference in how fast your application runs. By the end of this playlist, you'll know exactly how to hook up your Spring Boot app to a database, see different ways to get data in and out, and pick the best way for your project.
So, let's get started.
So, what's data access in Spring Boot all about? Data access in Spring Boot is all about how your application easily and efficiently talks to databases, whether they're SQL or NoSQL. Simply put, it's how your application communicates with databases like MySQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, or Redis. Spring Boot gives you a ton of options to make working with databases super easy, like JDBC, the direct, standard way to connect to databases. JPA, Hibernate, using objects to work with databases. Spring Data JPA makes JPA even simpler with ready-to-use interfaces. Spring Data JDBC, a lighter, faster way to work with relational databases. MyBatis, for developers who prefer writing SQL directly. NoSQL support, easy integration with NoSQL databases like MongoDB and Redis. Alright, let's dive into JDBC, Java Database Connectivity. Imagine your Java application wants to talk to a database like MySQL, PostgreSQL, or Oracle. How does it do that? That's where JDBC comes in. It acts like a middleman between your app and the database, allowing them to communicate seamlessly. So, what does JDBC actually provide? Connection. Think of this as dialing a number to connect with the database. Statement. Used to send simple SQL queries. Prepared statement. A better version that's optimized for repeated queries. Result set, holds the data retrieved from a query, just like a table. JDBC is powerful but requires a lot of manual work, managing connections, handling exceptions, and writing boilerplate code. But don't worry. Spring Boot simplifies all of this, making database interactions super smooth. Alright, let's talk about JPA, Java Persistence API. Ever wished you could seamlessly work with databases without writing endless SQL queries? Well, JPA makes that dream a reality. JPA is like a powerful abstraction layer building construction that connects your Java objects, also called entities, to relational database tables, eliminating the need for raw SQL queries. Instead of writing complex SQL, you simply work with intuitive Java objects, and JPA handles the database operations effortlessly behind the scenes. But here's the important part: JPA is just a specification, meaning it only defines the rules. It doesn't actually do the work. That's where Hibernate comes in. It's the leading implementation of JPA, and it's the default in Spring Boot. So, with JPA plus Hibernate in Spring Boot, you get drastically reduced SQL, more Java, work with objects, not queries. Automatic table mapping, your Java classes magically become database tables. Highly simplified data access, no need to manually manage connections. Alright, let's talk about some of the main ideas behind JPA that make working with databases so much easier. First, think of an entity like a plan for your database table. It's just a normal Java class, but you add some special JPA tags to it. Next, you've got the entity manager. It's like your helper that does all the database work for you. It lets you save, get, change, and delete things without writing any SQL. Then, there's JPQL, Java Persistence Query Language. It's like writing SQL, but you're working with your Java objects instead of database tables. And finally, you might have heard of ACID properties in databases. Well, that's where transactions come in. Spring Boot makes sure your database changes are safe and consistent, so if something goes wrong, it automatically undoes everything. Alright, let's talk about Spring Data JPA. Spring Data JPA is like a helper that sits on top of JPA and takes away a lot of the boring code you'd normally have to write. It lets you work with your database without writing SQL yourself. It gets rid of a ton of the usual database code you'd need. You don't have to deal with the entity manager or write complicated queries. It uses repositories to handle saving, getting, changing, and deleting data, all without SQL. Plus, it helps with things like showing data in pages, sorting, and making queries from method names. Alright, let's talk about the main parts of Spring Data JPA. These are the things that make working with databases so easy in Spring Boot. First, an entity is like a blueprint for a table in your database. You use an entity to tell Spring Boot that this class is a table. Next, repositories take away the need to write queries yourself by giving you all the basic database actions automatically. Just by using JPA repository, You get all the save, get, change, and delete stuff without writing any SQL. And lastly, Spring Data JPA can make queries for you just by looking at how you name your methods. Let's talk about Hibernate. Hibernate is a tool that helps you work with databases using Java code, instead of writing a bunch of SQL. It lets you use Java objects to interact with your database, which makes things a lot easier. It follows the rules of JPA, Java Persistence API, and also gives you extra features like caching, lazy loading, and automatically creating your database tables. Let's talk about the Entity Manager. The Entity Manager is a key part of JPA, Java Persistence API, that helps you do things with your database, like saving, changing, deleting, and finding data. It's like the go-between that connects your Java code to your database. Alright, that's it for this video. If you found this video helpful, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next part of our Spring Boot Data Access series. Got any questions? Drop them in the comments below, and I'll be happy to help. See you in the next video.